my one critique about the show, I would say visually, it's a really interesting show. I think that it's doing way more things right than it is wrong, in my opinion. But it is such a slow burn at the beginning, I think, that I'm not really finding myself extremely eager to jump into the next episode.
Right.
That's the one thing for me that that I feel a little guilty about, because so many people that I've talked to that have watched the show are like, dude, this show is like crazy, like awesome, unbelievable. And I'm watching it and I'm like, I've watched the first episode and I had a very easy time going to sleep. Like after watching the first episode, I wasn't like clamoring for the second one, you know? So it I have found it didn't pull me in quite as quickly as I thought it would. Maybe it's just because it was kind of hyped up for me.
A tea kettle doesn't whistle right away.
I hear you. No, and I'm completely for that. I'm with that. Yeah. But still, in my current episode,
I just came up with that. I kind of like that.
That was pretty good.
I just came up with that. That was pretty good.
I was convinced that was an actual saying.
I literally just thought it up.
A teapot doesn't. What'd you say?
Put it on a t-shirt.
A teapot doesn't whistle.
Yeah, a tea kettle doesn't whistle right away, baby.
I give consent to sever my memories between my work life and my personal life.
So, what themes are you kind of pulling from? Or, I mean, you've seen the whole thing. So, what themes do you pick up on that that make you feel like somebody that lives in our time now wrote the show and created the show? What do you think it's speaking to?
The show is really exploring the inherent flaw of a work-life balance.
Right.
Because so many people talk about work-life balance.
Yeah.
And we live in a time where companies are constantly preaching, we're a family, right? Join our family.
Yeah.
And they're asking more and more fidelity from you. Like, I don't have any statistics or numbers, but it really does feel like people are working more hours than they have before. Companies are asking a lot from their employees. And, you know, like if you look, you know, at what Google and Apple have done, where you hear stories of like, oh, they give you like rooms in the building where you can take naps.
Right.
And they have chefs at the office so you can get a meal whenever you want. And really, that's just a fancy way to say work here until 9 p.m. because you can sleep here, you can eat dinner here.
Yeah.
And it's like companies just want you to literally never leave.
Yeah.
You have work friends and work colleagues you only talk to and associate to when you're at work.
Yep.
And vice versa when you're at home. And it really does. You start to feel like you're two different people.
Yeah.
So there's that balance. And it explores how corporations are demanding your fidelity and preaching family when really it's more parasitical, where it's like, oh, come be our family. But really they're just kind of sucking all the time they can from you.
Yeah.
There's that. But there is this exploration of what makes a person,
yeah,
which is the part that caught me by surprise, because the other part, what I just mentioned, is kind of inherent in the premise.
Yeah.
The exploration of what actually makes someone human is fascinating.
You asked that interesting question, what makes human beings human?
Yeah.
Or what makes people people? And it's this search for sustenance almost.
Yeah.
Where it's like, well, there has to be more behind this than what it is just face value. So they make up stories about where the numbers are going and what they're actually doing, and
they make up stories about people in other departments that they don't interact with.
Exactly. And it's just this it feels like this corporation feels like they've got it all figured out. But the thing that they don't have figured out is how people actually are, and how they need each other, and how they need the stories from their life as sustenance to feel fulfilled. It's not, your job doesn't fill you up all the way. It's every piece of your life, you know?
Yeah. Something that really convicted me when I watched it was this idea of, okay, Adam Scott decides to get severed because it's not really a spoiler. It's in like the first episode. His wife tragically died.
Yeah.
And he couldn't handle the grief. So what he did is he opted for this job that lets you for 8 hours of the day not even know about it.
Yeah.
So for 8 hours, he gets to work in a job where that version of himself doesn't remember. And then the part of him that does remember is pretty much unconscious for those 8 hours. And it helps him grieve by basically ignoring.
Yeah.
And it's this idea of like, I'm going to sell my time for a paycheck.
Yeah.
Because what do companies want from you the most? Your time.
Yeah.
They want you to log those hours. And so he goes, okay, I'll sign away that time and a version of me will exist.
I'll be there anyway, but I won't be conscious of the time.
And it's a trade-off. And it just makes me go like, man, like how often have I thought, well, like, oh, it's just my time, whether it's a job or whatever, it's just my time. And I started to think about how we often think of time as this separate thing.
Yeah.
Like it's this thing we carry around like, oh, I have my time and I can divide and do with it what I will. But I think what the show's exploring is there's no such thing as a difference between you and time. You are your time. Mm-hmm. The time you spend is what you are. So what makes someone a person? It's what they do and how they spend their time.
Yeah.
And so that's why inside Adam Scott is a completely different person. He's a little bit more, you see him and he's like joking around.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a go-getter. And then his home life version's kind of like a sad sack.
Yeah.
And struggles to go on dates, and his sister's concerned with him, and he's
he's like, kind of judged for the decision of severing.
Yeah.
Like at that dinner party,
they're kind of questioning him.
The whole group is kind of questioning him and judging him.
But
that.
It just shows you like the reason those people are different is because what makes you is your memories. And what is your memories? Just it's the time you spent.
Yeah.
It's an encapsulation of time. So it's like there is no such thing as you apart from time. You are your time. And I love that the show makes that so clear, is like we are so willing in an American work environment to very in a cavalier way forfeit our time as if it doesn't matter. And I feel like what the show is saying, no, your time does matter.
Yeah.
Because that's what makes you you. And the innies are constantly obsessed with what they are outside of that because they're desperate for those memories again.
Yeah.
They don't know who they are because they can't remember.
And I think John Turturro mentions that in one of the most recent episode I was watching, where he's like, it's difficult to know who you are when you have no past.
Yeah, exactly.
And he talks like he has some dialogue about like how are we supposed to like move on with, like, how are we supposed to do this and how are we supposed to live without having a past shape us and shape who we are.
Do I know you?
My name's Petey. I'm from work.
So we're friends?
I'm your best friend.
There is a lot of visualizing the idea of being severed.
Yeah.
And one of the things I loved about the show right away is, like you mentioned at the top, the visuals. And I don't know if you noticed this, but especially in the first couple episodes, in the episodes that Ben Stiller directs, he often frames Adam Scott on like the far edge of the frame and leaves a lot of negative space on the other side as a way to like sever him in the image.
Yeah. And
so there are so many times like in his apartment, like, you know, he's on the left side of the frame, like far left, and there's just a lot of negative space throughout.
Yeah.
Or he's at dinner and he's framed on the far right and there's negative space to the left.
Well, I was actually noticing that with I think Adam Scott and John Turturro were standing next to each other having a conversation.
Yeah.
And there was like tons of headroom at the top of the screen.
Yes.
Where it was just like chest up, and that was half the screen, and then the other half of the screen was just empty space above their heads. And I was like, I like this, but I don't understand why, like, what would make you want to do that? And then now we're having this conversation. I'm completely realizing why.
I was thinking that too.
You would do that
I was
shot.
like, man, there's a lot of like shots where they're utilizing negative space and framing him on one side a lot. And I was like, he's severed.
Yeah.
He's not whole. Like there's no center. He's not centered as a human.
Yeah.
And they do that like with the partitions, like they're framing them with the partitions a lot in the cubicles.
Yeah.
And I think the hallways are that way too. They're very winding and they don't really have any orientation. So there definitely is a lot of visual representation of the idea of being severed.
Yeah.
That I really liked. They do so many visual things.
Well, and even the elevator kind of is like it closes and then you go down and then they change and walk out in a different way. But
I really like that effect. The little dolly zoom they do anytime they're in the elevator.
Yeah.
Where like it pushes in on them while zooming out. And it's like a really interesting, like, okay, I know what's happening. They're switching people.
Yeah, exactly.
I really enjoyed the first season of Severance. I'm like with bated breath waiting for season 2. I think Ben Stiller, the episodes he directed, just knocked it out of the park visually. And
so he doesn't direct every episode.
He doesn't direct every episode.
Okay.
There's a couple other directors, and I want to give a shout out to the cinematographers as well. They're just as involved with the visual storytelling of it. Adam Scott's amazing. All the actors are amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a while where I watched a show that has like a core mystery that like really has me thinking about theories and intrigued. And I appreciate that it's a show with a driving mystery that isn't 100% reliant on the mystery factor. Like there's actually stuff on its mind, and it's not just mystery for the sake of mystery.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. But I really dig it. If you haven't seen it yet, and for some reason you listen to all this, risking spoilers, the hype's real.
You're a brave soul.
The hype's real. I will say, like Evan said, it's a little slow, but you know what they say? You know what they say, Evan?
I know what they say.
The tea kettle doesn't whistle right away, baby. The tea kettle doesn't whistle right away.
You're insufferable.